guys, welcome to yet another episode of Microsoft ERP Beginners Tutorial Series. In the previous episode, we had an introduction to the transfer order process in Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And in this episode, it's going to be a continuation and we will be doing an end-to-end scenario using the transfer orders in Microsoft Dynamics 365. So let's get started into the transfer order process. Hi guys, welcome again. So for those who are new to this channel, I'm doing a multi-part series on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. This session is tailor-made for both beginners and beyond. In this series, I'm doing a deep dive session into various parameters and various aspects and scenarios within Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operation. So in the previous episode, we have started a discussion about the transfer orders. So in this particular episode, we will be continuing our discussion on the transfer order process. So in this particular episode, we will be doing a end-to-end process using a transfer order. So let's get started. So for creating a transfer order, you need to get into the inventory management module and either in the inbound orders or in the outbound orders. In both the areas, you have the transfer order link. We already discussed this in the previous video. So let me just click on any link and get into the transfer order. So before creating a transfer order, let me give you a preview of the scenario that we are planning to do today. So which is, I'm going to assume that we have a warehouse named CW1, which we have already created in our previous video. And we used the same warehouse in our previous video as well. So assuming we have a CW1 warehouse, and this warehouse have a stock of all the parts required, and another warehouse called CS that is an urgent requirement or a need for a specific spare part. So the CS warehouse cannot wait for the vendor to supply for that particular spare part because the lead time to deliver the spare part from the vendor is too high, and the customers are very high priority customers and they are waiting for the order to be delivered as soon as possible. So actually the parts are the stabilizer link and the shock absorber. So the CS warehouse decided to transfer the stock from his nearing warehouse, which is CW1, to the CS warehouse using a transfer order. So this is the scenario, the end-to-end scenario we are going to review today, and we are going to review all the steps that are needed to perform during the journey between CW1 to CS. So let's go back to the environment and let's try to see the stock of those two items that we have seen in the PowerPoint, stabilizer and the absorber. So in order to view the stock in Dynamics 365, you need to go into the inventory management module. Normally I go into the product information management, get into the specific item on hand inventory and view the stock there. But in order to view the stock of all the items, normally we need to go into the inventory management module and on hand inventory section. So in the on hand inventory section, I can filter for a specific warehouse, but in this case, I'm just going to click on apply. So that's going to show me the full list of items against all the warehouses. So here are the two items that we were just discussing. So let me also add another dimension called warehouse and just save the setup so it gets permanently added. Say OK. So now you see that the shock absorber, there are 100 in the CW1, but there is only one in the CS warehouse. So it is, in the CS warehouse, there's a shortage of stock, and we can clearly see that the CW1 do have 100. So we can, of course, transfer some of them from this warehouse to this warehouse. So likewise, even for the stabilizer link, there are 100 in the CW1, but there is only one in the CS warehouse. So again, we can do some transfers and adjust the stock between the two warehouses. So let's do this and then come back to the on-hand inventory and check. So in order to create a transfer order, click on the new button and let's add those two items. But before that, of course, we need to specify the warehouse. In our example, it's going to be CS1 to CS, just like how we discussed in the scenario. Just save it, and now add the item number. So this is the first item, and that's the second item. So I'm going to, out of 100, I'm going to transfer 4 of them from CW1 to CS or CS, and in this case 3 of them of stabilizer link from CW1 to CS. Just save them. About the reservations, it's a big topic. It deserves a separate episode. We will discuss about it in detail in the next episode. For now, let's focus on just the happy path and an end-to-end scenario, and what are the options available during our end-to-end scenario within a transfer order. That's going to be the focus for today. So yeah, so I have added 2 items. So I also wanted to show another scenario. So let me add another item, let's say gearbox. Please note that the gearbox doesn't have any stock. Okay, so I'm just going to add them. Okay, so let it be 1. So I also added a gearbox. So 3 items are getting transferred from CW1 to CS. Save them. And the first step that is needed is you need to get into the ship tab. So under the ship tab, there is an option called as generate picking list. Okay, so that's the first step necessary for us to go ahead with our transfer order. So this step is normally performed by the person who is in charge of the transfer process and who is having the access to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations System. He logs into the Finance and Operations Systems, get into the transfer order, and he generates a picking list and take a copy of the picking list and provide it to the warehouse worker. So the warehouse worker can take the picking list with him and pick the item from the rake or the shelf. So that's the process, right? So now let's first generate a picking list and try to print it and give it to the warehouse worker. Okay, in order to do that, you need to click on the generate picking list. Assuming I am the person who is responsible to print the picking list and give it to the warehouse worker, I'm going to do the entire process. So under the post picking list screen, there are multiple options here. So one being, if I select all, it will show all the items that are in the transfer order. Okay, and with the full quantity 431. So it shows everything. And likewise, so reserved quantity, as I mentioned, reservation topic we will discuss separately in the next episode. So it deserves a separate episode. It's a big topic. We'll discuss it later. About the available quantity, if I choose this will only show the available the items which are available in the stock in the CW1 warehouse. Okay, so we know that the gearbox is not in the stock, right? So if I select the available quantity, I'll see that there are only 2 of the items that are displayed because the gearbox is not in stock and it's not displayed. So when you choose available quantity, it is easier for us to understand which item is in stock in the CW1 warehouse, so we can eliminate the items that is not in stock. Okay, maybe we can wait for the stock to arrive. Maybe the stock is arriving tomorrow in the CW1 warehouse, so you can do the next transfer of the third line tomorrow once we receive the stock, right? We can even do multiple shipments using the transfer order, right? So the available quantity option is very handy to review whether the items which are you're transferring are in stock or not. Okay, so that's the available quantity. So ship now, if I select ship now, nothing is displayed here, but I will show you why ship now is required. Just cancel this, and for time being I will also remove the gearbox. I just added it to show the available quantity. So let's just remove that, and let's assume we are only transferring 2 items from the warehouse CW1 to CS. So here we have an option called ship now. So let's say that even though the transfer quantity required in the destination warehouse is 4 and 3 respectively, but let's say that I only want to initially transfer 2 of this item, and yeah, for this item I'm not going to give any quantity, or maybe all 3 of this particular item. Okay, so because maybe I only have space for 5 items in my current shipment, in my current transportation vehicle or van, right? So in the current shipment I'm only going to accommodate 5 of the item. So 2 of the item of shock observer is remaining quantity that I'm planning to ship maybe in tomorrow's shipment. So I'm doing a partial delivery of my transfer order to my destination warehouse. So in the ship now column, I'm putting 2 out of 4 and 3 out of 3 to be shipped to my destination warehouse. Okay, so that is the ship now field. So just save it, and let's now go to the generate picking list and choose the ship now option. You will see that the ship now quantity of 2 and 3 is displayed. Okay, so this is displayed from the ship now column. So now let's assume that we do not have space to do a single transfer of all the stock from CW1 to CS. So we are planning to do it in 2 separate shipments, maybe 1 shipment today and the remaining 2 items tomorrow. Okay, so let's go and print a picking list and issue it to our warehouse worker for them to go ahead and pick the stock from the shelf. So in order to do that, you need to make sure you click on that button called print picking list and say OK. So in my case, of course, I can change the setup to print it to the printer or to the screen. In my case, just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to print the transfer order to my screen. Let's wait and give a couple of minutes. So the picking list is printed to the screen. You may see that the item shock observer and the stabilizer link is added, and here only 2 quantity because we have only selected 2 as a ship now quantity, and 3 out of 3 of stabilizer is shipped. And so here is where once this particular copy, the printed copy of this is issued to the warehouse worker, the warehouse worker will example, so let's say that this is a stabilizer and the observer. So as soon as I post my picklist registration, what happened is the picklist is generated and printed, and this particular picklist will be issued to the warehouse worker. So the warehouse worker will take this particular the paper and get into the location, and he fills with the pen into this particular section in the dash here. Okay, let's say he find all the 2 quantity of the shock observer, he enters 2 here, and likewise stabilizer link, he found all 3 quantity, then he enters 3 here. Okay, and finally at the end of the day, once he does the picking, he will hand it over the paper back to the person who is in charge to key in the details into the system. Okay, so in this case I am the user who's having access, so I will be handing over this printout to the warehouse worker. The warehouse worker will write down the picked quantity in the given space and hand it over the paper to me, and then I am responsible now to key in this picking process in a form of a picklist registration in the system. Okay, just in case if he do not find 2 items, instead you only find 1 item, for some reason we incorrectly updated the inventory in the system, then in such cases we can handle all those scenarios within the picklist registration. But those scenarios we will do it in the next episode. For now, let's stick to the happy path, and let's assume that the warehouse worker have picked 2, warehouse worker have picked 3, he have already filled in and he have handed it over to me. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll go back to the system, and once the warehouse worker, that is the paper is being issued to the warehouse worker or generated in the system, the pick list registration link will be enabled. Okay, so I need to get into this pick list registration link, or even the pick list link will be enabled, so I can even get into the picking list link, and here you will find the picking route number as well, and you will find the list of items that are to be picked, and from here also you can go to the pick list registration screen. Okay, or if you do not want to go from here, you can directly go to the pick list registration from here as well. And even from here, just in case if you forgot to print it to the screen, you can even from here go ahead and print your picking list to the screen or to the printer and give it to the warehouse worker. Okay, so in this case I assume that I have given it to the warehouse worker, so or some copies I have not given it to the warehouse worker. Okay, either cases the picking list registration link will be enabled and the status will be activated. Okay, so now just now I have mentioned one scenario, right? Let's say that my warehouse is too big. I have generated 50 pages, that is I have generated picking list for 50 different transfer orders, and I have distributed the picking list to some of my warehouse worker, and some of them I still have it in my desk and I have not distributed it. So how will I know whether the picking process is started or not, right? Because the status is only activated is shown here. So it could be a little confusing for me to understand if the picking process actually started or not, because whether it is started or not, as soon as I post the this particular journal, that is generate the picking list, the pick list registration gets created and the handling status will be activated, right? So in order for me to know whether it is started or not, there are some additional status under the functions button. So let's say that I have already given the copy of the picking list to one of my warehouse worker, so he's going to the warehouse now to pick the inventory. So I'm going to now just say that the picking is started. Okay, so just say and go ahead and start picking route. So now it says the handling status is started. So this way we can differentiate between those picking route, whether they're started or whether they're only activated and not yet started. Okay, so of course, as I mentioned before, this is we're only reviewing the positive scenario here. So I'm going to assume that the warehouse worker have picked 2 of this item and 3 of this item successfully. So he gives back the paper to me. So based on the paper copy, I will go and update the pick list registration status by clicking on the update button and update all. Okay, so once I do update all, the status changes to completed. Okay, first it was activated, then it was started, and now it is completed. So which means the picking process is now done. So if I go back to my transfer order, in the transfer order, let's say I'm choosing the first line. Let me close this. Yeah, let me choose the first line and get into the inventory and check the transactions. I will see that there are 3 inventory transactions generated for the first line. Okay, so let's review that. So the first transaction is actually from the source warehouse. In this case, it's CW1, right? So let me also include the dimensions. Save it. Okay. Okay. So you see there are the source warehouse, right? So the first one for the source warehouse, it is moving out of the source warehouse. So for the warehouse CS1, this transaction is basically an outbound transaction or a issue transaction, right? So that's why it's called picked. And we only picked it, right? We have not delivered it. We only picked it from the inventory. The warehouse picker have picked it from the shelf. So how many of them we picked? Out of 4, we only picked 2, right? Remaining 2 is still in the shelf. That is yet to be picked tomorrow, right? So that's why the single item line is, that is the single transaction is split into 2. So which means the 2 of them are picked, 2 of them are unpicked. So against the issue transaction, that is against the issue warehouse. Whereas against the receive warehouse, 4 is yet to be received. They are still they're still ordered, they're still not yet received. Okay, so for the one line, 3 lines of inventory transactions get generated for the source and the destination. Okay, and that is for the partial delivery scenario, because partially we are delivering only 2, but in this case, 3, we are delivering it completely to the destination warehouse. So if you review the transaction of this, you will only have 2 transactions. One is from the source warehouse, another is the destination warehouse. In the source warehouse, 3 of them are picked, right? And in the destination warehouse, we are still waiting to be received. They are in the status of ordered. Okay, so let's close this for now. So that's about the inventory transaction, but more about the inventory transactions and the difference between the inventory transaction in the transfer order, the transfer journal, all of that we will cover in the future episodes. Do not worry about it. So that is the concept of generating picking list and picking list registration. So now we can go and do the transfer, that is move the shipment to the another warehouse. So the first step is this, second step is this, third step is ship the transfer order. So let me click on the ship transfer order. So here I'm going to use the option of picked quantity because I have picked 2 and 3, right? So I'm going to use the picked quantity here. So the system shows the relevant picked quantity. Even all will be for 4 and 3. If I proceed with this, system will throw me an error because I have only picked 2 out of 4, so it's just, I may not be able to proceed. So I'm not going to use all here. I'm going to use picked here. Okay, so 2 and 3. So let's go and click on OK. So now they are in the transit. They've been transferred out of this particular CW1 warehouse. So the last step now is, but before that, let's review the line details. So if you see, the transfer quantity is 4, but shipped quantity is only 2. Transfer quantity is 3, shipped quantity is also 3. And in this case, the remaining ship quantity is 2. Okay, so this is the partial delivery of transfer order that we have done. So it clearly shows the remaining quantity under the ship now tab. And the receive now quantity is 2 and 3 that is being shipped, right? So yeah, so that is same. Like this is under receive now tab, this is under the ship now tab. So now in order for me to receive this, there are also multiple ways to receive a transfer order. We will view other methods of receiving a transfer order when we discuss about arrival journal and all those later. But for now, let's only focus on the transfer order. So in order to receive the transfer order in the destination warehouse, we need to get into the receive tab and click on the receive button. So here I will be receiving my shipment. Okay, so if there are multiple shipments, you will view multiple shipments here. We will also review the multiple shipment scenarios later, but for now let's just not focus on the shipment voucher. I will come back to this again. So choose the shipment, and here it will clearly indicate the quantities that are due to be received, 2 and 3 respectively in our case. So go ahead and receive it. Okay, so now you have successfully received the quantity, and if you check the on-hand inventory, apply, you will see that the shock observer, 98, 3 is being delivered, 97 is in the CW1, and 4 is being delivered to the CS warehouse, right? So this is indication of the transfer process from this warehouse to this warehouse. So that is how you do the transfer. Yeah, there are more concepts in the transfer like reservations and other things we will discuss, and there are also many more scenarios related to under delivery, over delivery within a transfer order, reservations, and partial delivery within the picklist registration. So all that we will come back in the next episode and review them. And one more thing is, under the transfer process, if you get into the transfer order history, you will see a shipment transaction and a receive transaction. Just in case if there are multiple shipment, let's say that there are two which are at the moment remaining, right? We need to send them maybe tomorrow. Let's say after a day, now we want to send the next level of shipment, right? So what we need to do is again the same process. Just to get into the generate picking list and go to the all, system will automatically show the remaining two that is yet to be shipped. So you can now go and give an OK, do a pick list registration, update it and transfer it. And once you do that, the second shipment will be done. You can get into the receive tab and choose the shipment voucher as a second shipment and receive the second shipment as well. So this is how you send two shipments separately, right? It's partial delivery. Anyways, we will see them again in the upcoming episode. But in this episode, let's explore another additional scenario. So you see that I have already received the transfer order, but still the status of the transfer order isn't created. But if you remember in the past episode, we have discussed that the transfer order status will be created initially. Once we ship it out, it will be shipped, and once we receive it, it will be received, right? But still in this case, it's always created. That's because it's a partial delivery scenario, and still there are two more pending to be delivered to the destination warehouse, and that's the reason why this transfer order always shows a status of created. So either we need to process the remaining quantity for this to update, or another way is, let's say that a company decided that we do not want the remaining two because the customer have cancelled the order, or maybe the vendor is delivering, or my vendor order is on the way and I'm going to receive it tomorrow, so I do not want the remaining two. So my destination warehouse decided to cancel the remaining two. So in such cases, how we can do it is just like how we did in the purchase order. Just click on the delivery reminder and just cancel the remaining two quantities. So if you see here, it's gone, right? So if you refresh it, you will no more see the remaining quantity, and you will also see the status of the transfer is now updated to received because it's finally received, right? So this is in general end-to-end transfer process. The transfer order is not very complex. It's very simple. Only like 3 clicks are needed. And in some cases, let's say that your warehouses is very, very small and you really do not want to generate a picking list or a picking list registration, because you know that the item will only be located in one particular location. You really do not want to track the movement of the warehouse workers. In such cases, you can skip generate picking list and picking list registration. You can directly go ahead and also post the ship transfer order, okay, and then you can receive the transfer order. So in such cases, 1, 2, 3 step will be reduced to just 2 step, 1 and receive 2. Okay, so even that is absolutely possible. Maybe you can try that scenario by creating a transfer order and not doing any picking list and directly doing a ship transfer order. Okay, so these are some of the options that I have selected to discuss today. Hopefully in the next episode we will discuss furthermore about the transfer order. See you again in the next episode. Thank you for watching this episode.